I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates Meanakeims.
All right, so first play we're going to look at 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Mike Kadlick here, Tayler Kyles right here. Good.
I want to do the Collinsworth slide. I was trying.
I was gonna say that was perfect. That was perfect Collinsworth slide timing. I don't know if it was perfect timing, but we are here. We apologize for the delay, and we are here, Taylor, for what is sort of our first, feels like off-season edition of Patriots Daily, because the reaction to Vrabel, that still felt like in season, wrapping up. Putting a bow on last year, and now we are here. It is the 2025 offseason for the New England Patriots, and as we do, and as we will try and do on Wednesdays throughout this offseason, we're bringing you a mailbag. So we have a ton of questions loaded up from Twitter. Feel free to throw them in the comments. We'll get to as many as possible over the next, half hour, 45 minutes. Everyone's saying in the chat that it was you that was late, and that's why we were late. No, it's just, I can't hear you.
Technical difficulties. I wasn't late. I just need to work on my slide timing. That's all.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. And we were figuring out those technical difficulties too. So, but no, want to turn these into, obviously, sometimes our pods are all segmented and feel like they're planned, but mailbag day feels like a conversation, and we're going to try and hit all of this stuff going on with the team. The title is Coaching Staff Hunt. The title on the pod and on YouTube is who will be the Patriots' next OC. So I feel like it's necessary that we start there, because that's kind of where the talks are settling in here now. Mike Vrabel spoke with WEEI yesterday morning and mentioned that the Patriots were starting their coaching search yesterday. He was asked about Josh McDaniels, and I've already gotten this the feel for how Mike Vrabel does these kind of things, Taylor, and he answers questions without really answering them. He's kind of ace to the Belichick mold of things. It's perfect. He was asked by Karen during his initial press conference about if he's spoken with Drake May. And he said, yeah, I've spoken with a lot of players. And it's like, but you didn't really answer if you spoke with Drake May, but you kind of did. So you can take it both ways. And he did that yesterday with Josh.
Have a coach who's wise to the media game.
Exactly.
Sure, I did not recognize your game.
Back to normal. Exactly. But he did the same thing yesterday when asked by Greg Hill about Josh McDaniels. He said, is Josh on that list? And he goes, yes, I have a long list. And it's like, well, you said yes, but did you mean Josh? It's good stuff, but it leaves it up to speculation. The other thing he said, it's going to take a couple weeks. So I ask you, where are you at? What do you think they should do? What do you think they will do? Let's just have an open conversation about the candidates. Gabe Pats asked, do we think they're going to cast a wide net? Do you think it's going to move quickly? Will it be done in a few days? I will say that from what Vrabel said, in general, it sounds like they're going to take things relatively slow. And he mentioned the playoffs. So that tells me that there's some guys in the playoff cycle that they want to bring in, not just for OC, but everything. So talk about it. What do you think about OC? Where do you think they should go with Drake May and company?
It definitely sounds like they're trying to go for somebody who's currently in the playoff race. Because when answering the questions, I don't think it's insignificant that the Josh connections, there's two sides of this. One, he can't just say, yeah, I love Josh McDaniels. Right. I really want Josh McDaniels. Because as much as ownership has tried to make this, this rebuild 3.0 look like a total sham, I think that Mike Vrabel understands we can't just be going out here and making it very obvious that we have certain candidates that we strongly prefer. So he has been very smart about this and been like, yeah, no,
almost like he's done it before. What do you know?
Yeah, isn't it? And like the Crabs have not really had to respect the Rooney Rule, but we're not going to go into that.
Sure.
Any snipers around? No. But no, in all seriousness, with the offensive coordinator search, it does sound like he's looking for somebody who's currently in the playoffs, because the way he's kind of deferred to being like, hey, we're going to take our time, could take a week, could take a few weeks. And it's like, oh, you mean like depending on how long it takes someone to get eliminated from the playoffs?
Right.
Well, that's kind of a little like ring-a-ding-ding kind of a bell right there. So the names that pop up, obviously Nick Caley is one of them. The Patriots interviewed him last year. I think Nick Caley understood the situation that the Patriots are maybe in, because we heard so often from reports that came out recently that the Patriots process when they interviewed offensive coordinators wasn't terribly impressive. They land on Alex Van Pelt, of course, but he wasn't in a great spot himself, having been fired from the Browns unceremoniously. Obviously, really probably didn't deserve to be fired. If he does get fired from the Patriots, it's another situation where it feels like he kind of got the short end of the stick. But they really stumbled into a guy who wanted another opportunity. And this year, it seems like Mike Vrabel may want somebody who is kind of closer to that, only because he's waiting for these playoff teams to finish. Maybe somebody from like the McVay tree. So full disclosure, I've tried to been watching tape to catch up on the Titans defense and what they look like. Vrabel, the Patriots offense, even with like Josh McDaniels, how they tried to play against Mike Vrabel when they played Brady, and also how obviously the Titans played him. And also, I've been trying to get ahead on the Senior Bowl because, newsflash, CLNS, at least
Taylor's going
to be at the Senior Bowl. That's going to be a lot of fun. So I've been trying to get ahead on that as well. So for the coaching stuff, especially because so much of this is tied to connections, right? Like you could go through the entire Titans staff, and a lot of people have, and I respect it, but my priorities have been elsewhere. So I'm kind of deferring to Mike Reese, who we know obviously is plugged in as anybody, has done a fantastic job. And he pointed out a couple of names. Obviously, Tommy Reese has been promoted to Browns offensive coordinator. Great for him. Somebody who people thought Mike Vrabel would potentially try to bring to the Patriots. I thought he was going to come to the Patriots because why would you want to be the offensive coordinator for the Browns when their quarterback position is completely unsettled? But hey, Kevin Stefanski does a great job. I think he maybe just wants to be another system that he's comfortable in and has already been solidified. Josh McDaniels, obviously at the top of the list. Another guy, Dave Ragone, first Tennessee Titans wide receivers coach from 2011 to 2012, was promoted to quarterbacks coach in 2013. So experience with different positions, very important. He was with the Washington offensive quality control coach in 2015, moved on to be the quarterbacks coach for the Bears from 2016 to 2019, promoted to passing game coordinator for the Bears in 2020, then moved on to be the Falcons offensive coordinator for 2021 to 2023 under, of course, Arthur Smith, who was the offensive coordinator for the Titans. And then he was the Rams quarterbacks coach from 2024 until the present. We'll see what happens with him. Another coach to watch out for, Tim Kelly. Now, he was with the Titans as the passing game coordinator back in 2022, was also the offensive coordinator for the Texans back in 2021, and the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach in 2020. Pretty extensive history in Houston, so clearly overlap with both Bill O'Brien and Mike Vrabel. Then from Tennessee, went on from being the passing game coordinator in 2022 to the offensive coordinator in 2023. Currently, he is the Giants tight ends coach. So if Mike Vrabel wants to bring a guy who was already an offensive coordinator in that Tennessee offense, obviously wasn't an offensive coordinator under him, but could potentially bring in Tim Kelly. So those are some names to kind of throw out there. Defensive coordinators are a little bit more shaky. I'll come out tomorrow with some of those names because they're not quite as clear cut. But
there's a question about the DCs in here too. We can hit it quick. But like you said, we'll talk more about that tomorrow as well.
Exactly. So really, Josh McDaniels still at the top of my list. But if you're talking about familiarity, Dave Ragone, Tim Kelly seem like names definitely look out for.
Couple more I'll throw out there. I mentioned Chad O'Shea originally. I don't remember if he was the he must have been the play caller in Miami when he was there as OC under Brian Flores for a year. He ended up getting fired. But he was now with Cleveland as an assistant there, worked with Vrabel. He was here for a long time, their wide receivers coach. Wouldn't be surprised if they brought him in for at least a discussion on the staff, whether that's OC or not. The other name in LA, Mike LaFleur, is their OC right now. And now that's one where you'd have to give him an upgrade, a title change, or have him convince McVay, I want to go here, and give him the opportunity to call plays. Because right now he doesn't call plays with McVay at the helm. So I look at this as, those two Rams guys, LaFleur and Ragone, as two guys who that's what makes it sound like that's where they want to go with OC guys in the playoffs. I would like an experienced play caller, right? So that's Josh. That's Tim Kelly. Ragone as OC in Atlanta didn't call plays because Arthur Smith was there. He was a play calling head coach in Atlanta. So that makes me a little bit hesitant. I do like his history with quarterbacks. Anyone that comes in, I either need quarterback development in their repertoire, in their history, or a Nick Caley along with somebody who we know can work with quarterbacks and be like an A-plus quarterbacks coach. The other thing on, and I want to see, well, someone already asked about Ragone, so that question doesn't really matter because we just touched on him a little bit. I'll add this and I'll throw this into this conversation, updates about assistant coaches, in general. We talked about Vrabel's comments on EEI yesterday about waiting for the playoffs to end. I rewatched it and re-listened this morning because that's the only bit of on-the-record stuff we have from Vrabel that we can kind of parse through and nitpick. He mentioned the playoffs ending before he mentioned Josh McDaniels and OC. It kind of felt like he was asked about coordinators in general, and he mentioned that. So my mind actually goes to John Stryker, the game management guy. They call him Stretch.
Everybody, like Taylor Lewan has joked about it. Like everyone's like, yeah, Stretch is going to be coming to New England. That's his
apparently Lewan texted Stretch right as Vrabel got fired and said, congrats on your move to New England. And so like, that's one of the ones that tells me they're waiting for LA to get booted so that Vrabel can go get his guy Stretch in here. So that also goes into that Rams sort of cycle that I think that has been connected to the Patriots. So that's another name I think of, not necessarily an OC, but he's been sort of dubbed, at least on Twitter, as Vrabel's Ernie Adams. His sort of inside ear game management helps him know what to do in certain situations. Vrabel mentioned all the analytics stuff yesterday on EEI as well. So that's one name to look out for. And then other than that, we'll kind of touch on DC's later in the week, later in the show. Some quick names, maybe Patrick Graham is one. Jim Schwartz he worked with in Cleveland. I don't know. It's going to be hard to pry him out of there. But those are some of the names to think about there. Any other thoughts? Oh, Brian Hartline is in the question as well. Brian Hartline, co-offensive coordinator, Ohio State, obviously a solid receivers coach. Wes Welker's another name. If Josh came, he just got fired in Miami. So there's a ton of connections, webs, things to digest, and they're all speculation right now, but I also think it's pretty exciting hearing the type of staff that they could potentially build here.
Yeah, I don't think Wes Welker or Brian Hartline are necessarily offensive coordinator hires.
No. Just assistant coaches.
Assistant coaches for sure. And Brian Hartline, even still, that's going to be an interesting one because he's coming from college, so he wouldn't need a different title. He would just be able to come on as whatever he want. I would love Brian Hartline. Everything I've ever heard about him from players, they love him. And obviously his track record speaks for itself. Ohio State's receivers have been excellent. I would love that to be this year's version of, Tyler Hughes and Jalen Polk. You get Brian Hartline as a wide receivers coach, and then maybe get like a Booker or something like that to be freaking sick. But yeah, it's kind of nice having a head coach who's got connections because you can actually make these ties. It doesn't just have to be, the de facto general manager. It can actually be the head coach of people he's worked with in the past and has relationships with and trusts and all those things that are very, very nice to have for a new regime. So with Wes Welker, that would be so cool. Also, obviously, I can't really lie. It's not like Miami's had a bunch of great receivers in recent history. It's like Tyreek.
Well, it's not like Wes Welker developed Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill was already a thing.
I don't think Waddle's obviously a very good player, but he was a good player in Alabama as well. But even still, having a guy like Wes Welker, if Mike Vrabel in their experience sees like, hey, this is a way that he can make our guys better. His experience being in championships, being a part of winning football programs, like that would be awesome. So
and being a smart player in McDaniel's offense and understanding where to go and how to read, how to read the defense and what to do where, like having somebody who's played in that system before certainly helps that cause, and someone who's had success in it can help the slot, can help the outside, and understand what concepts, what you do where, and things of that nature. So that is definitely an exciting one. I want to bring up this from first of all, Commander Ray, we appreciate the super chat as we always do. He mentions AVP. Would AVP stay? Do you think it's possible? Could he stay with Josh? Could he? And that's different systems. There would be some overlap there. But would you welcome AVP back? I think I know the answer to that. Would he come back as a demotion?
I would welcome him back. But as an offensive coordinator, I don't know. I really don't know. I think that last season we tolerated a lot of subpar coaching, play calling. And I think with Alex Van Pelt, like it feels rude to say subpar because there were stretches where when people were doing the right things, the offense looked fine, right? It's not like this guy was incompetent. We talk about, oh, we want all the most forward-thinking play callers and all that, but like it's like people wanting, a top 10 quarterback. There's only so many in the NFL.
Totally.
As much as people want the most cutting-edge person, you got what you got. And last year, for what the Patriots were, especially in hindsight, the fact they got somebody like Alex Van Pelt is a GD miracle. He did a really great job with this offense. I think all things considered, he had a ton of young receivers. He had a rookie quarterback. His veteran quarterback couldn't do a whole lot because of his offensive line. And the offensive line kind of kept Alex Van Pelt from trying to run the balanced offense that I think he had in mind. So with all those things considered, I would absolutely consider Alex Van Pelt in some kind of role. But if Vrabel has an offensive coordinator that he's comfortable with, that he trusts, I'm sorry that Alex Van Pelt is going to have to take a demotion. And he doesn't even need to take a demotion. The guy doesn't have to even coach this year. He can go to the Bills and do media. He's obviously, we loved our press conferences with Alex Van Pelt. He was always transparent. He said as much as he could without being a headline. Not once was Alex
accountability
that was like a headliner on NBC Sports Boston or, God forbid, national media. He didn't say anything out of pocket. He told us things that made our job easier, helped us understand the team better, and all those things. So he was fantastic. But at the same time, I just, that's how these things work. When you get a new regime, sometimes it just doesn't really fit as well as you'd like. I hope that Alex Van Pelt can find some role on this team because I think him and Hunter Henry and the tight ends and the veterans and Drake May and Joe Milton, I think they all worked well together. But you have to be accommodating to the new staff. So I think our fingers are all crossed that Alex Van Pelt, TC McCartney, those guys are back. But we have to be open to the idea and the reality that they may not be.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, one more thing on the OC search to close out the topic. Jason in the chat says Leftwich would be a nice addition. Maybe he says just not at OC. He had relative success at OC in Tampa, but this goes back to the skirting the Rooney Rule, fact-finding mission argument of these searches.
We still allowed to talk about that because it wasn't a big deal.
Well, yeah, you wonder what they found out in those conversations, and yes, they skirted it, and it felt like it was really fast. Now, I look at the Dallas Cowboys head coaching situation as even more malpractice than the Patriots because they waited so long and now they have no one to talk to. And it's like, Dallas. Like they waited a week. They didn't get their calls in. They didn't get their interviews in. And now they're kind of skirting and scrambling. And not to say that what the Patriots did is any better, but the Patriots rushed it and got their guy. Dallas sat on their hands and now you never know what's going to happen with them. So anyway, back to the topic at hand. Leftwich, Pep Hamilton, they spoke to those guys. I'm sure they talked offense with those guys. Would you consider those guys on staff? What do you make of them sort of maybe coming in, maybe being the OC? Thoughts on that in general? And if, again, they looked at those and, you not just use them as checking boxes, but trying to pick brains on what they could do with Drake May in an offense.
I mean, Mike Vrabel, as far as I know, like, does he know those guys? There's not overlap from what I know.
The only overlap, it's a stretch, but it's Vrabel and Brady are friends, and Leftwich coach Brady.
That's about it. And that's where I'll wait. If they bring them in,
was Pep,
also, I think that would be such a weird look. Can you imagine bringing them back after the Patriots just got so much bad PR from bringing them in, having them on a joint announcement? I think that would be so. And this team has already proven to be fairly tone deaf when it comes to, I'll say, race relations, like publicly. So I know we talked about them coming on as like staff members, and I hope that happens. I hope that some part of those interviews was useful. But man, I just don't know how you bring them in for another interview.
Good point.
And that doesn't turn
and then not hire them. Like you can't bring them in as the Rooney Rule OC guys and then not hire them. That is a terrible, terrible.
I'm literally getting like goosebumps at the idea of them doing that. Like it's going to look real bad for the team. So I don't think so. If they there's a possibility they get hired. They're not coming through for another round of interviews. I think that's what I think it is.
That's fair. All right. Well, that's the OC discussion. We'll get back, go a little bit more rapid fire here on the other end. But first, a quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks. We'll be right back. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you got to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. So run your game all season long on Prize Picks. It is playoff time, which means it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. You can now win up to 1,000 times that money on Prize Picks, and they now offer MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. Prize Picks also puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure, and when your picks hit, you get your money in as little as 15 minutes. And all you have to do is download the Prize Picks app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS on the Prize Picks app to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Taylor, Prize Picks, that's Prize Picks. You know what we're going to do, actually, before we get into these questions is, first of all, I'm going to throw this up there because if you do download Prize Picks, just mentioned it, get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. And we're going to make a Prize Picks lineup for Saturday's Chiefs versus Texans game. I'm going to ask you if you think Travis Kelce will have more or less than 53.5 receiving yards against the Houston Texans.
Let me see his season stats.
Now, remember, it's playoffs, and Kelce turns it on in the playoffs.
True.
53.5. 53.
I'll do more. I shouldn't.
I think so, too.
I'll do
Okay.
more. It's
right.
if it were in the playoffs, because, dude, he has not had 50 yards. Oh, my gosh, dude. His season totals have actually been pretty terrible.
Yeah,
he hasn't had a 100-yard game since November 4th. The day after my birthday was when he had 100 yards. He has, oh my God, he has 100-yard game this season.
And he only had one, I think, he had one touchdown on Christmas Day, and I think that was only like his second or third touchdown of the entire year. He's been pretty slow.
Yeah, he has 3 touchdowns. It was December 25th. He had a touchdown. It was his third.
Yeah, but it's the playoffs, and it's Mahomes, and it's Kelce.
Gronk would never.
Fair point, but I'm gonna agree with you. I'm going more there. The other one, CJ Stroud, more or less than 227.5 passing yards. I think this is gonna be a relative. What'd you say?
Who they playing? Texans.
Houston's are playing the Chiefs. Same game.
Oh right, my bad.
I think more.
I'm gonna go less.
Less?
Spags? 227.
Either one
legitimate receiving option. I'm going less.
All right, we'll go less. That's our lineup. Travis Kelce, more than 53.5 receiving yards. CJ Stroud, less than 227.5 passing yards. We'll tweet it out on Saturday, and we'll see if we win. That's Prize Picks. Again, download the app. Code CLNS if you want to play with us. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. We're going to continue on with the mailbag here, and I have a question for you, Taylor, about your thoughts. What did you say?
I said,
what up? Oh, I thought you said
what's up. Sorry, it's some New York slang.
Yeah. Sorry,
I'm Boston vernacular.
Yeah, I don't understand what you're saying. But anyway, thoughts on the AJ Brown comments from yesterday. I actually loaded them in, so I want to play them if anybody else hadn't heard them. Mike Vrabel was asked about potentially adding AJ Brown to the Patriots yesterday on the Greg Hill Show.
Maybe if you provide free books on the sidelines, you might be able to get a certain wide receiver here.
Yeah, we'll see. But
was he a big reader back when you guys were together?
I think AJ's just trying to find ways to I'm proud of his development, his personal development, and working on himself and working on controlling his and getting back to center. And again, he's a passionate player, and I love him to death, and I have a very, very close relationship with him.
Yeah, that was pointed. That was, I like AJ Brown. We worked really well together. And when he mentions the mental aspect and the mental side and how he kind of knows that he's made developments and he's worked on the mental side of things where you've seen it. He's kind of blown up in Philly and things like that. And he comes back to earth, but Vrabel is the perfect, I know what to do to get something out of you, but I also care about your mental health and that aspect of things. Vrabel wasn't the reason he was traded out of Tennessee. So, look, I know it's probably going to be hard to pry him out of Philly. But what do you make of it? Because those were, I guess if he didn't think that there was a chance that A.J. Brown could come here, I don't think he would talk him up like that.
I don't think that's true. I think
Okay.
that Vrabel is very honest. He drafted AJ Brown. He developed AJ Brown. He saw AJ Brown from the time he was in the league and watched him mature and become one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League. Vrabel is a coach I think we can take at his word. I'm sure that we will learn our lessons when it comes to, okay, this is when he means this, and this is when he says this, but actually means that. I've seen a few Vrabel tendency press conferences. I'm still catching myself up, so I'm not quite there yet. But I think he would say this regardless. I think he really does want to, anytime he gets a chance, hype up AJ Brown because I think they have a personal relationship. I also think that if things were to go poorly in Philadelphia, if they go to the, if they're in the playoffs and they lose next round, or if they go and they win, and he feels like he's accomplished what he needs to in Philly, or if he feels like he hasn't accomplished what he needs to in Philly and doesn't really want to be a part of what they are doing and would rather reunite with Vrabel and also have a quarterback with a higher ceiling, obviously, I think we now know that the Patriots have become the team to connect to AJ Brown if he were ever legitimately involved in trade talks. That's as far as I'm going to go. I'm not doing anything more because that's as far as I think we can take this. We can say, yes, it's very fair to say that with Drake May and Mike Vrabel, which I think is really, I've yet to think of another duo that's better when you look at it long term or within like an NFL contract.
Yeah, like that tweet Chad tweeted the other day, right? Yeah.
In the next like 3 or 4 years, who's better? There were what, like 10 other coaches and quarterbacks are better than Mike Vrabel and Drake May on paper. We don't know what they are yet, of course. These are all projections. We're in the offseason, baby. It's
projection season.
So, yeah, I think that if anything were to happen and there were, another Tyreek situation, that's not fair to say that. But if there were another situation where AJ Brown was like, you know what, I don't really want to be here. I'd like to go somewhere else. The Patriots are 1A, B, and C. But that's about as much as we know right now.
Yeah, I agree. He's under contract and he signed an extension in Philly this year on a 3-year extension. He's under contract until 2029. So you'd have to trade for him unless they cut him. It looks like there's an out after 2027. But I mean, look, you send some things over there. You have the cap space to make it work. If you wanted to, you certainly could. And it's a good point where he may just want to stay there because he's had success there and they're a good football team. Right, exactly. So like, why would you want to leave? The only thing is him and Hurt seem to kind of go back and forth in their relationship, but
it's so weird. Like we got to talk to somebody from Philly because
I know
like Hurts seems like the most inoffensive person ever. Like I have a crush on Jalen Hurts. Like he seems like a very lovable guy, and AJ Brown doesn't seem like he's like a head case. Like we know wide receivers can sometimes be a little nutty. It doesn't seem like he's really out there. It just seems like he wants to win and gets very frustrated when he's not a part of that success, which obviously is part of the diva thing a little bit for receivers. But I don't know. I would love to hear some more insight because it's so bizarre that this has been happening with him this year. I never would have expected it.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, let's move on to the offensive line. Is there an offensive tackle in free agency that you think is worth targeting for the long term, not just a quick fix?
Long term, the only guy really is Alaric Jackson. I hope I'm saying that right. Alaric Jackson.
I think it's Alaric.
Yeah, I think it's Alaric too. But I believe he's had soft tissue injuries, and I'm hoping at some point we get a chance to ask Mike Vrabel exactly how much soft tissue injuries affect him, because now a friend of the pod, Paul Kowarski, mentioned that Vrabel, it's one of those things that he just doesn't have a lot of tolerance for. It's consistent soft tissue injuries. So if Alaric Jackson has them, he's a younger guy. He would be signed to probably the biggest contract for any of these left tackles if he did make the open market. And if he did, that's a lot. That's like with T. Higgins, where you're talking about offering a huge deal to somebody who might not be able to provide that for you. So that's the only guy, but I'm not so confident that he can.
What about Jedrick?
If you're
Jedrick Wills,
me pause because I said the crush on another man. Hey, you can have a crush on another man. It's fine. I will not say pause. I refuse.
Jedrick Wills. Jedrick Wills is on my list. Why? Played with Cleveland, played in Cleveland. Vrabel knows him. He's only 26, as the chat says.
Everything I've heard about him scares me. Like anytime I talk to somebody from Cleveland, it's just the consistency is an issue. I'm sorry. No, I could definitely do more research. And once we get to actual free agency, I promise. There are certain players that just when the season got bad, I kind of like attach myself to, like Patrick McCarry, Josh Sweat.
I know the list. Milton Williams, Josh Sweat.
Those are my boys. Those are my boys right now.
Ray Smith.
But like Jedrick Wills is someone who every time he comes up, in the back of my head, I'm just like, I feel like I've heard something bad about him. And I don't think that for a lot of players. And especially for offensive line help, like I'm pretty flexible, but he doesn't seem like one that's going to hit it. And also I see somebody in the chat saying Ronnie Stanley. I would love it.
Ronnie was mine too.
Ronnie Stanley and Patrick Stanley on the same side of the offensive line. That would be sick. I don't think Ronnie Stanley. I think they would rather franchise tag the guy. He's 30 years old. Yeah. You either franchise tag him or he'd probably rather just go back to the Ravens and finish on a high note and make his money. Or makes a lot of money rather than making a ton. Right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No, you're good. Good player on a good team. Franchise tag. If they don't get the job done this year, run it back. Henry one more year type of thing. Like
exactly.
It's not the same, but it reminds me of like everyone wanting the Patriots to sign Tyron Smith last year, where why do you want to be 30, 31 years old going to try and rebuild an offensive line when you're kind of just like not a stopgap measure because Stanley's a little bit younger, but I don't see it. I think it's Jackson. And I think, again, I still look at Jedrick Wills as somebody with the familiarity. Especially, you never know if a guy like Scott Peters sticks around. He was with him last year in Cleveland. So we'll see there. We do have another super chat from Jeff. $10. We love you. We appreciate you. I'll ask you this, Taylor. If you don't know, we can just use it as a jumping off point and to give Jeff some love in the chat. But does Cole Strange, Layden Robinson, or Michael Manu, how do they fit with Josh McDaniels' blocking schemes, moving a step more, which tackles would fit said scheme if they do end up hiring Josh?
I have to defer on the tackles in the draft. I never want to lie to y'all. I never want to blow smoke. I have not watched them well enough to know. So I don't know yet. Deferring the draft question, but blocking schemes for McDaniels. So we know with the Patriots and Tom Brady, specifically Tom Brady, it was all gap, right? There was some outside zone, especially with like James White, with Sony Michel. They would switch things up because they didn't want to be predictable. But also, they would mix in outside zone. They never majored in it, but they had a diverse run scheme. I actually went back, and it's like they're top 10 in duo, top 10 in power, top 10 in counter, top 10 in trap. Like the duo stuff is where they lean, but you don't know what you're getting from play to play. And that's still significant, right? Like that's what Ben Johnson does. They don't really run the same stuff. They run everything because they have that diversity of offensive linemen, which Mike Vrabel, thank God, he's thinking the same way. They want to probably major in outside zone, but he also understands you've got to run gap to punish defenses when they want to penetrate to stop you. Similar to what Scott Peters told us, right? After the first week of the season, we asked, why'd you kind of get away from outside zone? Oh, they were running certain things. We had to go back to our gap scheme. So that's kind of that. But for the outside zone scheme, because I think it's important to note that Josh is very flexible. Very flexible. When he was in Vegas his last season, the Rams were like 11th in the number of outside zone carries they had when they had Josh Jacobs, who majored in that when he was in Vegas. Or not Vegas. Sorry. He went to the Packers. My bad. But he was obviously more of an outside zone runner. Josh McDaniels adjusted to his scheme. Also, they had Jimmy Garoppolo, was much more comfortable with the outside zone scheme and the ways that you beat that as a quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. So there's no one scheme for Josh McDaniels. He is more experienced in gap, but he's also shown that he can rely on outside zone and also the things that you benefit from when you use outside zone. And Mike Nwenu showed he was my biggest concern when it came to the outside zone scheme. I thought he could be fine as a tackle because you can basically just block guys out. As a guard, I'm worried, okay, can you get outside the guy and get the reach blocks and all that? He was fine. Most of their outside zone success came between Demontre Jacobs and Mike Nwenu. So I think he's fine. Cole Strange was literally born to block an outside zone. And Layden Robinson, I think, has the arm length and the explosiveness to really do either if he's coached well enough.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to segue us into something else. And like you said, when you're going to defer to something and not completely understand, I understand the difference in blocking schemes and who runs what. That is your wheelhouse. I will leave that to you, especially
quarterback.
What Josh does. Like I said, I understand them. I know them. I can call them.
Here's a question for you. Did you have a certain scheme for play action that you preferred to run? Like a certain run fake?
It was almost all zone run fakes.
Okay.
We basically always ran zone. There was never really like hat on a hat.
So did you like the half boot or did you like the full boot?
We never did we? Oh no, we did fake and then boot, but I liked a sprint out boot rather than having to roll and stop. We never really moved the pocket like that. We would do like we were all gun, so we would fake action across, zone action, and then you would just drop straight back. Or we would have a fake across, but then somebody would like I think it was center guard or two would follow on the sprint out action. And I like throwing on the run to the left. So that was kind of.
We got to work this. I have a park by my house. We'll go and we'll practice some throws. I'll
make a video
from the run versus with a straight boot.
We'll make a video. Let's do that. That's a good idea. Pat Staley.
Can we tell them about the idea that we had during the season?
I don't know. I think we
next show. We'll talk about it maybe next show.
We'll talk about it off air and see. But that ended pretty quickly. Okay, let's continue on. Where are we? Oh, offensive line. Let's go. I guess big picture. What position should they or could they tackle in free agency versus the draft? I think Vrabel even said this the other day, whether it was in his introductory press conference or on EEI. But basically that free agency is going to dictate the draft. What you can fill or not fill there will then sort of change when you get to the NFL draft. But I kind of want to ask you this, and I'll loop it in with this. If they don't get T. Higgins in free agency, what do they do at wide receiver? So general thoughts, sorry, just to kind of put it into one. General thoughts on player acquisition, what they should do where, and also their answer at wide receiver if they don't land T.
Did you just call me general thought? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
General thought.
All right. Good answer.
This is such an unserious show.
But that's what we need here. We need to come on here and just have conversation. Sometimes when it's film review and we got to talk about this and hi, I'm Mike Kadlick and he's Tayler. It's like, no, let's just grab the mic and hang out. That's what this is supposed to be. Anyway.
Also, we're people are learning actively in the show. But wait, not that one. Sorry.
Oh.
You're right. I apologize. You can have a crush on men to each his own.
We don't judge on Pat Staley. We don't judge.
Great stuff. We love to see it. All right. As a former West Hollywood resident, this means a lot to me. We're showing growth. All right. But anyway, when it comes to the actual
player acquisition, Taylor.
Player acquisition, not personal preference. Player acquisition. If they don't get T. Higgins, and that's pretty much a reality that I have accepted, right? Mm-hmm. Soft tissue injuries consistently. You're going to have to make him a top 5, at least highest paid receiver in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Odds are under Mike Vrabel, he probably is going to prioritize that, especially I know that he has a certain type of receiver he likes, A.J. Brown, but he's put a lot of emphasis on the trenches offensively and defensively. And for the Patriots, when you're a really bad team, a lot of the times you should probably look to the trenches and the quarterback position first. Quarterback for the Patriots is fine. The trenches on both sides of the ball are down horrendous. Now, it's going to be very interesting offensively how they handle the offensive line, because left guard, you could do Cole Strange, first round pick. You could go Layden Robinson, 4th rounder, right? Not as high of a ceiling, but he still did finish the season strong. Unfortunately, if you're Mike Vrabel, you're saying, okay, well, yeah, Cole Strange, ADHD comment in the chat, also on brand, distracted me. But Cole Strange, you'd like him to be at center for the rest of his career, but at left guard, he's shown that he does struggle against power. He acknowledged it, right? There's still growth there. Layden Robinson, he finished strong, but there were still the issues that you had with him in the draft still showed up in his final few games. So if you're Mike Vrabel, are you saying, you know what? I trust my coaches. We're going to develop this guy. Or are you saying, hey, I love my coaches. I trust them, but I want dominant trenches. I want guys who we can go into camp and I know exactly what I'm going to get. If that's the case, you prioritize Trey Smith. Patrick McCarry is maybe your second choice, because I think Trey Smith is like, you got a dominant left guard. He played left guard in college. He's been a right guard for the Chiefs. But if you have Trey Smith and Mike Nwenu at guard, and Mike Vrabel has emphasized protection in the middle of the pocket, you're set. Whether it's David Andrews or Cole Strange at center, I think you're doing pretty well. Tackle's a little more difficult, right? Left tackle, if you can't get Alaric Jackson, Cam Robinson, do you really want to pay Cam Robinson when you have Vidarian Lowe? Their pass protection metrics are pretty even. Actually, no, Vidarian Lowe's been better.
Cam Robinson was a nightmare on Monday night against the Rams.
And like Vidarian Lowe's been bad. There's only been 2 or 3 games where you were really like, oh my God, like Vidarian. Outside of the mental errors, there were only 2 or 3 games where physically you were just like, this is horrendous. Like, you got to get out of there. So it's like, I would rather go with Vidarian and a developmental guy like an Ariante Ursery or a Josh Connerly, or like trade back into the first or something like that to get one of those guys. I prefer that. Right tackle is also kind of tricky. Caden Wallace was just horribly injured. Horribly injured. Amazing that he was even able to play at the end of the year. But he's a guy who had a really big jump his last year, and people were thinking, hey, if he continues this, he could be a starter. So it's tough with the trenches, especially on the offensive side of the ball, but I think that's where the priority is going to be. And again, Trey Smith and Patrick McCarry are the names that I'm kind of putting up there and thinking this makes a lot of sense. Jack Conklin, if he gets cut, if you can trade for him, something like that. Defensive line, again, I'm consistent. It's Josh Sweat. He's 28 years old, same age as Matt Judon when he signed to the Patriots. I think he gives you the edge rush, the experience, the winning presence that you need. Milton Williams has been one of the best pass rushers in football this season. Christian Barmore, your top tackles, Devon Gottschall mixes in as your nose when you want to stop the run. But I really like those 2 guys affecting the pocket. So those are the names I'm looking for. Also, Azeez Ojulari with Ryan Cowden. He was just with the Giants. Maybe they've got a connection there. Some other names like Baron Browning. There's some decent edge rushers, but really Josh Sweat is one of the guys that I'm really looking for in Azeez.
I really like the connection you just made between Cowden and Azeez Ojulari.
Yeah.
You wonder what Cowden could have thought that he wasn't a great player and he could have thought differently about him, but there was a connection there. And those are the types of things that I like with the new coaching staffs or whatever. Not that it's easy and not that, like everybody makes the, Josh is different, but the Mike LaFleur because of this or Tim Kelly because of that, because there's all these connections, but there's also ones that we don't even know about that are going to come out. But it's just so nice that there's actually like a web of communication and coaching trees and things like that for this staff and for this team. So that gets exciting. All right. 2 things in the chat. First and foremost.
I also saw one really quick, if I may. I saw a question and now I can't find it about mocks. Oh, here it is. Oh, yeah. We will be doing mocks. So I talked to Alex about this actually, because that was like our whole thing last year. We did the mocks. Gonna start doing those at least by next week. I let out my first mock draft of the year. Who did I get actually? I got I'm gonna go right through real quick. I think I kind of killed it, to be honest. Was it realistic? That's debatable, but for the first mock draft of the year, you're allowed to have some reaches. I got Abdul Carter at number 4. I did no trades. Abdul Carter at number 4, Ariante Ursery at 38, Jalen Royals at 69, and Derek Harmon at number 77. I think he'd be their Dietrich Wise replacement. So you get yourself an edge rusher / inside linebacker. You got yourself a left tackle, you got yourself a wide receiver, and you got yourself another defensive lineman.
All right, I was gonna break for game time and then wrap up with some rapid fire here. But since you're talking about the mock drafts, let's hit on a couple draft questions and then we'll hit game time and then we'll close out with a couple final questions. First and foremost, rapid fire. You mentioned Abdul Carter at number 4. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter on the board. Who do you take?
Carter.
No question, Carter.
No question.
Okay.
I'm sorry. It's like as much as I
lean Carter as well.
I love Christian Gonzalez for the player he is. If it was like, would you rather have Christian Gonzalez or Micah Parsons? I'm sorry. Fair. I'm taking Micah Parsons.
That's a good point.
It's like Christian Gonzalez changes the entire complexity of the game. But a guy like Micah Parsons, Abdul Carter, it's different because he can't stop the run quite yet. And that does hurt. But like, I always think if you can affect the pocket, that helps the second level, right? And the second level can help themselves with making plays, all that stuff. But most of the time when you talk about marrying the pass rush and the coverage, you're hoping the pass rush is going to be what dictates things. So I'm always going to take a great edge rusher or defensive lineman, period, but also a great edge rusher over a great cornerback.
Yeah, I also lean Carter. The one thing I did like about Travis Hunter when we did all the Travis Hunter talk towards the end of the season was the fact that he can kill two birds with one stone, wide receiver corner. When he gets hurt, though, but when he gets hurt, you lose a wide receiver and you lose a corner. So that's the flip side on something like that. So I'm with you. I lean Abdul Carter. One more draft question quickly. Are there any slot receivers in this draft? Xavier Restrepo, Miami. I love him. He's one of my favorite receivers in college football. He was a dog for like many years at Miami. That's the one I look at. I don't know if you would know anything else. I saw Matt St. Jean, our colleague here on the he's our colleague here. He's on the Pats Nation podcast with Pat Lane, and he did a Pats Pulpit mock draft and had Restrepo going to them. I love it. I feel like he would be a nice addition, especially in a Josh McDaniels offense. But do you know of any others, or are you just team Restrepo as well?
I like Restrepo. Again, I'm not super deep, but I've at least been looking at third round receivers, because with the Patriots, I like them in the first couple picks to get linemen. That's top priority for me. And then in the third and fourth round is where I'm like, all right, now you get some weapons, maybe a defensive tackle. But yeah, Restrepo, he's not going to be your makeup for Ladd McConkey necessarily. I'm not just saying this because they're a couple white guys. I'm saying it because they're like slot Z types. But also guys that are going to come into the draft as being very good separators, guys who are probably going to kill the Senior Bowl, which CLNS will be at. Make sure you're keeping it locked on for that. But he's not as explosive. Like Ladd McConkey's a 4-3 guy. He's not the same. But in terms of getting open, it kind of reminds me of when Josh had Jules and Danny Amendola, where it's like, okay, if Josh was here last year, I would have felt a little bit better about Ladd McConkey and Pop, because there's not a lot of offensive coordinators who know how to use two relatively undersized guys. It's tough, right? Because it's like, how do you prioritize? How do you put this one guy in position where this other guy doesn't get killed? Josh did a great job of that. I could see Restrepo, where he's 5'10", 200. That's Jules, right? Not as elusive. I don't think he's quite as good of a separator, but similar kind of profile. And then Pop like Danny Amendola, where you don't want him on the field a ton because he's a smaller guy, but he can get open, make plays after the catch, be dynamic, and all those things. So that'd be a pretty cool matchup there. But that third round specifically, I feel like is going to be a really great place for the Patriots to get themselves a couple weapons, because it feels like there's not a ton of high-end talent in this draft. So I think those receivers are either going to get taken early and they're going to be overdrafted, or they're going to slip. You're going to get some good values. And even with the tight ends and the running backs, feels like there's a lot of depth there. So it's not just the wide receivers. I think there is a few skill positions the Patriots could have drafted on that third day.
All righty, Taylor. Before we get out of here, second day.
Yes.
Second day. Before we wrap up, before we get out of here, quick word from our friends at Game Time, and then we will wrap up our final couple questions on today's mailbag. We will be right back. This episode is also powered by Game Time, the best place to get tickets to anything, concerts, games, and more. They have the Game Time Picks feature that makes getting tickets even easier. It filters out the fluff and only shows you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. They also have the lowest price guarantee, and they have seat views to check out exactly what it's going to look like from your seat. So make sure you download the Game Time app today to take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. What time is it?
Game Time.
Good answer. It is Game Time. Let's look at Game Time right now. You go to Boston, you open the app, buy. The Boston games come up right away. You know, it's funny. They know, not that other ticketing apps don't, but I like that it just comes up. It tells you UNH women's basketball, Maine Celtics, Vermont basketball. It keeps you right here, local. Boston Celtics is the big one. You can get into Friday's game against the Magic for as little as $89 right now on the Game Time app. That is the all-in price because I have that toggled on my app, so you don't get hit with hidden fees at the end. It's the best place to get tickets. So if you're going to do so, go to the Game Time app, use that code CLNS. You get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And Taylor, I think we close out the mailbag with one overarching quick question here. And this is actually from someone that had me blocked on Twitter. He was in your
You blocked.
Yeah, he had you. I don't know. I went to look at some questions to put them in our banners today, and I saw this tweet, and everything was grayed out at the bottom. When someone has you blocked, you can see their stuff now because X does that. But I couldn't retweet. I couldn't.
Damn it, Elon.
So Dan the Man 7, if you're watching, I don't know what I did. I don't even know if I'm sorry, but he asked, why are people excited for the Patriots? So let's end on a good note, as we like to do. Taylor, why are you excited for the Patriots in 2025?
I'm excited for the Patriots because they have proven leadership, someone who has done the job before, someone who has proven competent, if not perfect, and someone who, from all accounts, seems to have learned. Maybe we will see to what degree. We will see where exactly, but someone who seems to have learned from his past experience. And I feel like one thing that was said a lot against Ben Johnson was, so many players learn in their second year or their second try, right? Second, third try. Bill Belichick did it. A lot of great coaches did it. Hopefully Mike Vrabel joins that kind of cast as people who really were able to grow from their first experience as a head coach. The fact that Mike Vrabel finally has a dynamic quarterback, like, I don't want to overhype Drake May. I'm excited about him. I cannot lie and act like the end of the season didn't worry me a little bit, where he did unfortunately end on a low note. And you could say it's because the supporting cast, the weather, and all those things, but it is what it is. And I'll feel better once I get to see him on a field again. But even still, at the very worst, I think this is like a top half of the league at the very worst, and probably, more realistic worst, a top 12 kind of quarterback. I think defensively, you still have a lot of veterans who I think with the Mike Vrabel team, where you kind of bring back that Belichickian discipline and attention to detail, I think those guys are going to benefit from that. And also the fact that the offensive line, as bad as it is, one, they're going to bring in talent. I don't even think that's a question on both sides of the ball, but also the fact that Vrabel can help those guys. Defensive lineman by being like, hey, I was around one of the best defensive lines in NFL history, whether or not we're held as such. I can give you tips. And then on the other side of the ball, to be like, yeah, I know exactly what I would be looking at to attack you if I were a defensive lineman. Here's how you need to improve. Like those things, the overall access that Vrabel will be able to have to his players on the field, off the field, the fact the quarterback situation is resolved, and the fact that you've got so much capital to truly turn this into a very, very different team by next year, where you can fix the trenches, you can add young talent where you need to, and you can at least create a genuine core that could carry you into the next couple of years, similar to 2011. But if they didn't, get rid of all the good coaches and everything went downhill.
So that's where I don't want to say it's the answer's simple, but it kind of is, where yes, the roster is still not great. It's depleted. You need a lot of turnover. But I'm kind of reiterating what you just said, but it's really, there's three things here. The roster stinks. It needs help. But you have so much cap space to truly make that work. You have a head coach in Mike Vrabel, a GM in Ryan Cowden, an executive in Ryan Cowden who want to now work with Elliot Wolf and hopefully truly make that happen and make the most of that cap space. And even though the roster's so bad, you've seemingly hit on the two most important things, which is head coach and quarterback. Like, you hit on Drake May. Yes, the season wasn't great, but you have a franchise quarterback hopeful right now in Drake May, who's only, you'd hope, is going to improve. And at head coach, as much leeway as we gave Gerard last year, we never said they hit. We always said, give it time. Let's see, give him a chance. And then finally we said, well, he doesn't deserve a chance anymore. And they made the move. I think they hit on Vrabel. Like, could it backfire? Maybe, but he's done it before. What we've heard the last 2 days, he's going to come in to build a culture. And guys are probably going to take to it and listen, because he mends that mold, or he mends the fence, of hard-ass Bill Belichick. But I care. I understand. I can take the millennial player and turn him into a very good football player. So you've hit on the two big things: head coach, quarterback, the cap space, and turn around the roster. You hope that they can do that. That's why it's actually exciting, because at the end of the last couple of years of Bill, it was, we don't know about the quarterback, we don't know about the roster, we don't know about the coach. Now you at least know about the quarterback and coach, and you have enough cap to fix the roster. So it's exciting. It's good news around New England. And that's why we're going to be here on Pat's Daily as often as possible throughout the entire offseason to bring in news, notes, mailbags. We're going to do a show tomorrow looking at the roster and the coaches and kind of see, frankly, where they can trim the fat, who's here still, who's not here still. So we'll bring that to you tomorrow at some point. We'll make sure to reach out on social media so you guys know to come here. And we'll do a mailbag every week as well and keep hitting on this Patriots, these topics as the offseason continues on. So if you're interested in all that stuff, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Tayler, like you mentioned, is going to be at the Senior Bowl coming up shortly, so he'll have content from down there. I'm not going to be there, but I'm going to be on Pat's Daily with Tayler, knocking on all of that stuff. So all that being said, subscribe, rate, review. Going to be a fun offseason. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Goodbye, Tayler. Thank you for joining me.
Goodbye. Where am I going? Am I dying?
Yeah, goodbye. We will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out, everyone.